Well, good afternoon, financial professionals. I'm Dan Peterson, President, Managing Partner here at E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you to the Brew, building relationships every week. Thanks for tuning in today. For those of you joining the Brew for the first time, welcome. We like to start the Brewcast by celebrating today's National Day. It is National Chocolate Mousse Day, National Find a Rainbow Day, and with the blue skies we have today, I'm going to be looking for a while. National Walking Day, and National Pony Express Day. Yes, back in the 1840s when they were delivering mail, I had the privilege of being at one of our carriers' home office and got to go through their archives and actually saw that the first death claim they delivered was by Pony Express. So just keep that in mind. Today's Brew, we're starting our April-focused planning series on estate planning. We just wrapped up last month with key person and executive benefits, and we're going to shift that focus to estate planning. And joining us today is Berg, attorney and vice president of advanced marketing with Prudential, the piece of the rock, who will be discussing the anticipated change in the exemption amounts and concepts clients may want to explore as they consider their estate planning. We encourage you to use the chat box or raise your hand to ask questions. Also, the attendees are in a drawing for a CE voucher and a Starbucks gift card, and we'll announce the winner at the end. Thanks for tuning in. And Brett, thanks for joining us today. I told you earlier, I had Creighton going into the Elite Eight. You had him going a little further. You graduated from law school at Creighton University, had a great year, but not quite the year you really wanted.
Not quite the year we wanted, but we'll take it. They were Sweet 16 again, and we're proud of the Jays. So, but thanks for your belief in them too, Dan. So, but we are in that Final Four season, March Madness, and I think that carries over into a little bit of the planning season too that we're in. I didn't plan that comment, but I just think of it as that. I think that our planning has really picked up too, maybe not to the madness level, but certainly very fast and furious out there.
Well, we have, obviously we've got this major issue, which for a lot of people, and that is the sunset of the Tax Cuts and Job Act, right? That was passed, and it sunsets at the end of 2025.
That's right. That's right.
And what is the impact, just to remind our audience of the impact of that you're seeing?
Right. So remember that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, most of it was temporary, right? So at the stroke of midnight on December 31, 2025, when we go over to January 1, 2026, most of the provisions of that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the so-called Trump tax cuts, expire. They sunset. That's what everybody's talking about. And there are some major provisions that sunset. For example, we have this high exemption amount on the federal estate tax exemption, $13.61 million per person right now. That will sunset and revert back to what it was before the Trump tax cuts, $5 million indexed for inflation. So somewhere around that $7 million per person range. The cut which was a modest cut, but a cut nonetheless, in income tax rates will expire and will go back to what it was before the Trump tax cuts. So those are only a couple of the examples, Dan, but I think the major examples that people are focused on right now with respect to how this current law operates. And we want to emphasize really three things. Plan now, right? Get the plans in order, just the set of documents that people need for an estate plan. Gift now, especially those ultra high net worth clients that have that high exemption amount. They need to gift it now, right? It's not going to be there forever. And they need to insure now, lock in that insurability. And one final thing I'll say before we talk a little bit further about this is that people think that they have until the end of 2025 to do this. they really need to get started probably by the middle of this summer, right? Because lawyers start getting booked up, CPAs start getting booked up. These cases take a long time to do, maybe 10, 12 months to do. So in order to get it all done by December 31, 2025, certainly pieces and parts can get done along the way, but to get the entire plan done, they need to start right now. So there's a sense of urgency out there.
Yeah, we had an attorney panel at our last building business together meeting last fall, and universally the estate planning attorneys all said, do not wait to come see us in 2025. It is, you need to get on this, and even if you don't implement, at least get the plans put in place so that you're in a position to implement. Correct?
Right. I think that's true. And I think that, look, nothing works perfectly in the real world, right? And we're all living in the real world. Okay. So you can get the plan done first and then the insurance done first, and then sort of build the plan around it. The important thing is to identify the customer goals and get working on those highest priorities immediately, and identifying whatever has to happen immediately and get that completed, and then build the rest of the plan around that. Because really, we're talking about the planning process in general. No plan is ever really complete. We're always building and tweaking and improving plans along the way. But right now, there's a lot of room for work and a lot of work to be done, and not much time to do it. So we really need to get after it.
Well, I heard you a couple of weeks ago on a panel, and you were consistent. You talked about plan now, gift now, and insure now. Do you get a lot of agreement when you start talking to clients, estate planning attorney? I mean, is that a consensus with top quality estate planning attorneys and CPAs that you're corresponding with?
I think so. Once we explain what we're talking about. I mean, we can get some hesitation sometimes from certain attorneys that say, well, let's just wait and see what happens. But once we explain to them, there's no reason to wait. If the client goals are clear and the pathway is clear to improving upon these situations, why wait? I mean, especially on an insurance side,
Yep.
insurability can change, rates can change, pricing can change. So if we can get good pricing on the insurance that we know we're going to have within the plan, then why wait on these things, and why wait on the planning around it? Now, we do have discussions in the details, obviously, and that's where all of the intricacies are in the details. But by and large, a very accomplished estate planning lawyer will generally agree, and it's just a matter of getting on their schedule and getting the work done.
So the strategies with the expiration of the Tax Cuts and Job Act utilize the high exemption. How does one? What is the strategy there?
Well, it's
you mentioned it's 13.6 per person right now.
That's right.
So a couple is double that.
That's right. It's $27.22 million per person. Now look, that's rarefied air, Dan. I mean, not many people are going to be able to afford to give away, $27+ million, but some people can. Some people can, and we see it. And I've seen it before. A few years ago, when we faced the expiration of the Bush tax cuts, I saw the same type of thing happen. I saw these large gifts happen, and we do see that happen. But it can happen with smaller gifts too, right? Portions of that number, right? A fraction of that number, or just general gifting of the annual exclusion amount, right? Which is $18,000 per person per donee right now, right? And so what we see is people doing more of that, because what happens is, in this business, as all of us on this phone know, maybe plan now, gift now, insure now are elementary to us, but this is the first time that the client may be seeing this show, right? This may be the first time they're really tuned into this message. So once we explain the advantages of doing this and getting the house in order, making those gifts, because every dollar is outside the estate, appreciation's outside the estate, and if they use insurance, the insurance is outside the estate. They start the wheels turning. Wow, yeah, we really would like to give that to the kids or the grandkids, and we really would like to have that set. We really would like to have that insured, right? And make sure there's a
Right.
guaranteed bucket of money there to the extent you're working with a product with guarantees. They're really interested in that, so that they get that started, because the client really runs the show, right?
Right. Right.
And the attorneys and the CPAs, the team around them, the insurance people, we work for the client. We work for that customer. So we take their lead.
Well, along those lines, some other strategies, and again, I like how simply you make it: plan now, gift now, insure now. I've always, when it comes to estate planning and all the different strategies that are out there, I've always boiled them into three things that a simple Swede can understand, and that is freeze, squeeze, and burn, right?
Yep, that's right.
Is it a freezing technique? Is it a squeezing technique? You're reducing the size of the estate, or is it a burning technique where
It's
you're
all
paying
three.
taxes and
It's
a
all
gift?
three,
Yeah,
Dan.
it's all three.
And as you allude to your background, I don't know if you remember this, but I too come from Swedish heritage up there in the Minnesota and North Dakota area. As a matter of fact, the Moorhead area in particular. So I really identify with that, right? And I think that that's a good way of putting it. And let's just put it into context for people. So when we talk about planning, when Dan says squeeze, I'm going to start with that squeeze. Let's get the gift valuation down to the lowest amount possible, so we're paying the least amount of gift tax on a gift when we're giving it. So we may be giving $13.61 million worth of value, but that is a squeezed value. Maybe it's a business interest that's worth 20 million, to anybody else, but because it's a minority interest, marketability discounts, it's worth 15 million or 13 million in terms of gift value of it. Economic value is different from gift value in many cases. And I'm using shorthand here, but the gift value of it, you can take discounts right now, right? Discount the value for lack of marketability or a minority interest. It's not worth as much on the market to a lot of people because it's a minority interest. So that squeezes the value, right? And then what we do is we gift, and that freezes the value for gifting purposes. And then the burn that Dan's talking about is when I gift money to a grantor trust, let's just say it's cash. I just want to make it real simple. And I reinvested in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or that business interest is in trust and is throwing off maybe dividends or interest or something of that nature, right? It's throwing off income. That income is taxed back to me on my 1040, okay?
Individually.
And I am paying the taxes for what's in the trust, in effect making an additional gift, right? But it's not classified as a gift. It's classified as paying taxes. But in the mind of the consumer, that's actually giving more money to the next generation, and it's using that burn, that tax burn. That's what that refers to. So a lot of attorneys do use those terms. That's what they mean by those terms. Repackage the assets so that we can squeeze them down in value, freeze the asset, and then use that tax burn to even have more value going to the next generation at a tax efficient manner and in a tax efficient way. And what we really want to do is focus on downstreaming the wealth as tax efficiently as we can to the next generation, especially with that never money or never assets that people are never going to use for themselves. Let's get that to the next
Those
generation.
legacy assets that they want, or business assets. And
that's right.
In our neck of the woods, those large farming assets and other things that, yes.
Yep.
Some of the other strategies that are talked about, obviously, grantor retained annuity trusts. And I think you're going to be speaking in a couple of weeks here, next week, some of these strategies are going to be under attack. You're anticipating at Prudential that there's going to be some challenges with some of these planning strategies, and they're going to take another run at it in Congress. So that's one that I continue to hear, is this grantor retained annuity trust.
Right. And it's not just that. Well, grantor retained annuity trust obviously is another way of really downstreaming a lot of wealth to the next generation with a very low gift tax cost. Because what you do with a so-called Walton grad or zeroed out grad is you're giving a chunk of money to a trust. And that trust is giving you a series of payments back in annuity calculated using a governmental rate that's published every month. And when you do that over a period of time, the annuity that I'm receiving back can actually approximate the cost of what I gave. Any growth above the hurdle rate that's assumed in the annuity payment back is in the trust and can go to a remainder, an irrevocable life insurance trust for the grandkids, or it can go to me outright as a beneficiary. Not me, I would be the grantor, but let's say it could go to Dan as the beneficiary. It can go to anybody. And it could be a lot of money in there. It could be millions of dollars at a very low gift tax cost because of how the annuity is calculated and how the grad operates. Well, Congress has been, Congress and administrations really, presidential administrations have been saying, look, we understand that. We understand that that's a really good way of transferring wealth, and it's in the code. This is codified. So why don't we change this and say that we're going to eliminate short-term grats? Because what I can do is I can have a 2-year grat that has a bunch of appreciation, drops to Dan. 2-year grat drops to Dan. And why don't we have a longer time frame on those 10-year grats, for example? Maybe, I haven't heard eliminate grats altogether, but they could do that too. I think that that's much more aggressive than what I've seen. So that's just the grat aspect. But Dan, let's pull back for a second and go to your broader point. Congress is taking a look at all the kinds of wealth strategies that we use. I'll give you another one that's really simple. $18,000 per person per donee, right? There have been proposals to limit the amount that I can give away to like $50,000, not $18,000 per person per donee, because if I have 10 grandkids, I could give 180,000 and my wife could give 180,000 yearly, right? And check me on my math, Dan, but that's $360,000. And they're saying, no, well, we like annual gifts and everything, but maybe we'll limit that to $50,000 that you can give, right?
In total.
In total.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that these are going to pass. Okay, everyone.
Right. You don't have a crystal ball.
They're looking at these things, right? Think about what we're going through as a country. We've got debt, we've got deficit. That puts pressure on the fisc, right? I'm not a political prognosticator. I'm not a governmental affairs lawyer, but what I can say is that we have published proposals from the Biden administration on some of what I've been talking about here. And other administrations have proposed other things. Other Congress people have proposed other things. Senators have proposed other things. We don't know where this is going to land, because when we have a situation where a big tax bill sunsets, there's usually a pressure for at least a discussion around tax reform. And we don't know what will fall by the wayside and what won't fall by the wayside. So one of my messages is plan now, right? Plan now with the tools you have now, because you don't know if you're going to have those same tools, whether it be grats or annual gifting or what have you, down the line. But we know we have those tools now. And then that gifting is very important now. That insuring is very important now, as we talked about. So the now part is what I try to focus on to combat sort of the natural tendency anyway to procrastinate. There is a natural procrastination tendency. We do face it. And we have to just coach people to take the appropriate action for their facts and circumstances in context of their team of advisors, lawyers, CPAs. We don't give tax or legal advice at Pru, and I don't either, right? But what we do is we give people information, right, that they can take to that team of advisors, construct a plan that makes sense, and move forward.
Well, this whole concept of estate planning, there's some practical things too, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention your company, Prudential, is one of the leaders in providing guaranteed life insurance solutions for clients as they plan. And you're, in our mind, you're one of the very, very best at the second to die life insurance, which is a key part of it. And ILETs come into that, irrevocable life insurance trust, where we can get the death benefit out of the estate, and it pass tax free. That's a huge benefit. But it also, the sunset, and that I was sitting yesterday with a doctor who's 39 years of age, entrepreneurial, building his wealth. His estate, net estate right now is about 5.5 million. He's been divorced, so he has a single exemption. Yeah. We're looking at some debt, from still quite a bit of debt from being at medical school, and I proposed $5 million of additional coverage for him and said, I think we need to talk about an irrevocable life insurance trust with a qualified estate planning attorney. He said, well, I don't have an estate tax problem today. I said, yes, but with the sunset, if we put 5 million of coverage individually owned on top of your 5.5 estate right now, and we sunset at 7, we've just made, for 3 million of this additional coverage, the federal government a 40% beneficiary on your life insurance. So it has a lot of ramifications, even like you said, there's the big ones that, have estates where, they're really going to have an impact, but it's starting to impact other Americans and other of our customers as well, correct?
That's exactly right. And I think that the best thing you can do for people is show them that even if they may not have a problem today, like your single doctor there, divorced single doctor, doesn't have a problem today, but may have a problem tomorrow, right? And just with a little bit of growth in the estate and the reversion back, mathematically, how that works is you'll start seeing exposures out, right? 10, 20 years out, especially with somebody like that at life expectancy. You're going to see an even huger exposure, or huger is not a word, a larger exposure, right? Yeah. But I like huger though. It grabs me, right? Here's the thing. We just have to show people where they're at, where they're likely to be, what their problems may be, right? What their exposures may be. And we have tools to do that. I know E4 has a lot of great tools to do that too. We just have to marshal our resources in any way we can to help people understand these realities, right? These mathematical realities, these economic realities, and show them their options to deal with it, right? And their choices, because really at a young age like that, for this doctor, he's probably going to be buying a single life product himself. But let's say we're dealing with somebody different and they're buy a survivorship product, right? Where they're potentially married individuals, for example, would buy a survivorship product. You can get, and as we all know, we can get the costs very low on something like that by the design of that product, give them the protection that they need, and also give them a lot of other benefits, supplemental retirement income from the cash value. I mean, it's a very flexible tool. So what I like to focus on here is, you can have flexible funding strategies for your estate plan. You can have flexible products that work with that very well. And you can have flexible planning strategies, trusts, for example. I'll give you an example. You could have, if this person were married, in particular, maybe a spousal access trust, right? He's not married. So does he have kids? Probably not very old kids if he's got them. But, he could have other beneficiaries, such as his children, on that trust. And why is that important? Well, people say, I like the fact that maybe I'm going to get money outside the estate and protect myself against estate taxes. That's good, but I want to have access to it too. I want to have my cake and eat it too. There are ways to do that. That access trust idea is a way to do it. You just have to have another beneficiary, a non-grantor beneficiary, to get the money out too. So if it's the spouse asks the trustee for money. If it's kids ask the trustee for money, get the money out. And so there are lots of benefits here that people can take advantage of. There's lots of flexibility that they can take advantage of. And that includes funding, products, and the actual legal mechanisms that they're using. So it's a fun area. It's a great area. This is the greatest wealth transfer in history by a factor of 10. And we're living right in the middle of it. So
Yeah.
it's wonderful times.
Well, appreciate that. We'll see if we have any questions here to wrap up. I really appreciate the plan now, gift now, insure now. It ties right into also freeze, squeeze, and burn, and another simple way for us to comprehend that and really help our clients not wait until 2025 to start this process, but as you said, really get going by the latest this summer with really starting to think through their planning. We do have one question on charitable giving and donating assets to a charity. How does that fit into a, that can be a viable option, correct?
Sure. Yeah. No, there are only three places wealth can go, right? It can go to your family, your heirs, your loved ones. It can go to charity, your community, or it can go to the government. And so usually you try to minimize what's going to the IRS, right? And you maximize what's going to family. And then also, yeah, charitable giving is big, right? Look at ultra high net worth, multi billionaires and what they do.
Bill Gates Foundation,
Bill Gates
Warren
Foundation.
Buffett, from where you went to college, and
Yeah,
the
he's an
Oracle of
Omahan
Omaha.
too.
Yeah.
He's the other famous Omahan, Dan. And
yeah, you and Bill, you and Warren. Yes.
Warren, right. But everybody knows who Warren Buffett is, and people read his books, and people pay attention to what he does. So yes, donating stock, donating cash, obviously the deductions, are different depending upon the assets and to whom they're given. That's a very complicated area, but the overall here is people do need to take a look at, okay, am I going to donate to my university? Am I going to donate to my church, synagogue, mosque? Am I going to do those types of things? And if I am, how is that going to be integrated into this plan? And then if I do give some away, what have I done to offset that gift with the others that I'm trying to benefit? Maybe I've just given away a $10 million asset. How do I replace that wealth for my heirs, right? I'm not talking about replacing anything for the IRS. I'm talking about making sure you maximize what's going to your family and to your community and make a really great plan that makes sense.
Well, I really like that. So there's only three places wealth can go. And so you choose that place wisely where you want it to go. So great. Well, Brett, I just want to remind everybody that today's brew and our entire library is recorded, and it's on our brew blog on our website, www.e4.insurance. And we'll be posting this session, and it'll be emailed. The link will be emailed out to advisors later. But now it's time for our giveaway. I need you to pick a number between 1 and 27. Can you pick a number, Brett? Sorry, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm picking the number. Okay.
Yeah, you picked the number.
Between 1 and 27, I'll pick 22.
22. The winner, number 22, Debbie Struthers is today's winner. Debbie, you've got you'll be hearing from us. You're getting a Starbucks gift card and a CE voucher for courtesy of E4 Insurance Services. And thank you for being on today's brew. On next week's brew, we'll continue discussing estate planning with a case study led by our Chief Distribution Officer and Managing Partner, Brendan Derone, and Steve Walker, our Vice President of Institutional Accounts. The case study discusses Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery, a high net worth couple in their early 50s. They reside in Minnesota, possess substantial assets, including multiple properties, investments, and a thriving business. They're concerned about state and federal estate taxes, and they aim to optimize their estate plan to maximize preservation while ensuring their family's financial security. So that's next week's brew. Thanks, everyone. Great start to our theme this month, Brett. Appreciate you being here. And thanks to everyone who joined us on the brew. We'll see you next week on the brew.